The controversial British-American social media celebrity Andrew Tate has announced that he has indeed converted to Islam, and his reason for doing so may shock you. We're going to take a look at his conversion announcement, and we're going to find out why, if the Western church doesn't get its act together, Andrew Tate is just the beginning. Piers Morgan, in his recent interview with Andrew Tate, described Tate as, quote, the most famous man you probably never heard of. His resume is indeed impressive. He's a former professional kickboxing champion and reality TV star who made millions in an adult webcam business as well as casinos in Romania. But it's his social media presence that perhaps has been the most impressive. He's gotten billions of views online. In fact, at one point, he was the most searched person on Google, even surpassing Donald Trump. But it was his controversial comments about women that ultimately got Tate in trouble with the woke moral police. And as a result, Tate has been banned from virtually all social media platforms. But ironically, social media has once again lit up with Andrew Tate news recently, as it was widely reported that Andrew Tate has announced that he has become a Muslim. A recent video has gone viral showing Tate learning to pray at a mosque in Dubai, guided by the renowned MMA fighter Tam Khan. It has since been confirmed in a video with Islamic scholar and YouTuber Mohammed Hijab that Tate has indeed converted to Islam.
I wanted to ask you now, because this is the hot topic, especially in the Muslim community, about your conversion.
Yeah.
So tell us the story, like what happened exactly?
Well, I think a lot of people who've been following me for a while understand that I've been very respectful of Islam for a long time.
Yeah, sure.
I was born in a Christian country. I was raised as a Christian, and I've always been very respectful of Islam, and it's become more and more obvious to me and more pertinent that Islam is the last religion on the planet. When I talk about Islam, because I'm new to it,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit careful, right? Because I'm new to it. I'm certainly not a scholar. There's so much I need to learn. I know I'm on a learning journey. I'm not here to sit here and talk scripture. I don't know those things yet. I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
But
and we're here at your assistance.
thank you, bro. Thank you.
Honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But it's just, for me, it feels like the last religion on earth. I feel like there's no other religion. People say to me, why did you convert? And I said, I don't really feel it as a conversion. It's almost like I knew God was real, and now I've become religious. And they say, well, you were religious before. I was like, religious before how? Christian? What does Christian mean? Like, who's not a Christian? You go to Christian nations, and everyone says they're a Christian. Look how they live their lives. Go into the average church. Is anyone actually fearful of God? Anybody? No. The girls are out on Saturday night drinking, and then they turn up to church because their parents made them. Like, there's no substance to the religion. And also, Islam very closely reflects my personal beliefs. Through my personal life, I've learned that if you don't have standards and you're not a strong person who's prepared to defend his ideas, you will be crushed.
Yes.
And we look at most religions in the world today which are not prepared to defend their ideas. What's happened to them? They're just getting crushed. And now we have Christianity as an idea which has basically said, well, we can't set any firm rules because everyone will just quit. So instead, let's make it so easy to be a Christian that nobody has to put any effort in.
Yeah.
And then accept everybody no matter what, and hopefully we can keep the church doors open. That's not God to me, you know?
Yeah.
God to me is strong. God to me is something to be feared.
Yeah.
God to me is someone that people are afraid to mock.
Yeah.
God to me is someone that you have to go out of your way to prove something to. God to me has red lines.
Yeah.
Like, God to me represents the Islamic faith. The Christian God to me, I don't see God. I can't explain. I don't see anything there. So to me, it was the only logical choice in the end.
So there's a lot there, of course, but two major things stand out for me that combined are perhaps more valid than any of us would want to admit. But first, we take care of each other here on this channel, so make sure to click on that link below and head on over to my special website for the Ready Project Food Supply. No one makes preparing for an emergency more ridiculously easy and affordable than our good friends over at the Ready Project Food Supply. Their food kits last up to 25 years in storage. They include breakfast, lunches, and dinners. Every meal is at least 2,000 calories. And if you act right now, you're going to save 25% off a full 4-week emergency food supply when you click on that link below to my special website. So whatever you do, do not wait. Click on that link and start building your emergency food supply today. First and foremost here, I think it's very important for us to recognize that Tate's conversion is actually part of a much larger trend that's going on all over the world. While our legacy media likes to continue to peddle this nonsense that the world is getting more and more secular, the reality is actually the polar opposite. The world is getting more and more religious. And that's happening as a result of a trend that we, of course, talk a lot about on this channel that involves nothing less than a mass worldwide return. A return that scholars call ReTraditionalization. Scholars have noticed over the last couple of decades a profound trend where populations are increasingly returning to their customs, cultures, and traditions, most particularly their religious traditions, as a mass backlash against the secularizing processes of globalization. And the key here is the recognition that decades of secular globalization have actually de-traditionalized cultures and societies, replacing traditional ways of life with more globalistic and consumer-based lifestyles that are, particularly with the advent of wokeness, are becoming they're increasingly appearing as hysterically absurd, rationally preposterous, morally vapid, and with the liberal left increasingly turning to weaponized legalism and cancel culture, secular globalism is increasingly being perceived as politically despotic. And so make no mistake, there is a massive backlash going on where nations like Hungary and Poland and Russia and India and even China are reasserting their religiosity, their kinship, their national symbols as mechanisms of resistance against globalizing dynamics. So that's the first thing to note here. But then that begs a question, doesn't it? Why isn't Tate going back to his Christian roots? If retraditionalization is all about a return tradition, how and why is Tate ending up in a very, very different religious tradition than the Christian one he admittedly grew up in? And it's here that I have to say that Tate is pressing on a very soft, tender part of Western Christianity that we're going to have to come to terms with at some point. You heard him. What did he say? What turned him off about the Christianity that he's been most exposed to? It's not traditionalist enough. That's the key. It's not traditionalist enough. Now, before you dismiss that as, hey, Andrew, Christianity is a relationship, not a religion, and all that kind of stuff, you have to understand what Tate just said there. He just said that modern Western Christianity is, in effect, no different from the pathetic woke culture he wants nothing to do with. That's what he just said. Modern Western Christianity is not leading a rebellion against the secular woke world. Modern Western Christianity has become the secular woke world. There is no identifiable difference between the two. The return to tradition is a return to pre-modern beliefs and practices that can effectively challenge and overcome the current woke insanities that pervade modern life. And Tate believes that modern Christianity, because of its obvious capitulations to secular modernity, is incapable of doing that. Now, obviously, that's a harsh assessment. But if we're honest, he is making a very, very valid observation. Over the last century, Western secularization has effectively marginalized religious convictions and practices to the private sphere of life, the place of the personal, the subjective. And in so doing, secularism in effect erected a massive Berlin Wall between our public life, which has been thoroughly secularized, and our private lives. And we could see this privatization in our urban planning. For example, whether we're in the Middle Ages or in colonial New England, the church was at the very center, architecturally, of public life, around which the entire city cohered. But in modern urban planning, what's at the center of public life? Municipal administrative buildings, secular corporate centers. And if there is a church, it's been relocated into the places of recreation and consumption, right next to pizzerias and dry cleaners. And I think this goes a long way to explaining why your typical evangelical church today evidences all the trappings of consumerism, precisely what Andrew Tate described. And this is all to say that modern Christianity has, in many respects, thoroughly embraced this privatization of the Christian faith. But what we have to understand is that it's done so at a terrible cost that's had dramatic effects on the nature of proclaiming truth. And this is because the public and private fields of life operate according to very different social dynamics. What belongs to one does not necessarily belong to the other. Public life consists of the objective, but private life consists of the subjective. Public life involves the obligatory. Private life involves the optional. Public life involves rules that apply to all. Private life involves rules that apply to only some. And so if there's such a marked difference between public and private life, we have to ask, what happens to the church when it's become so thoroughly privatized, so displaced by secular values? The church is, in effect, robbed of its capacity to witness to truth. And that's because truth is public, not private. Truth is objective, not subjective. It's obligatory, not optional. It applies to all, not merely some. The fact of the matter is that truth cannot survive being consigned culturally to the private sphere of life. But that's precisely what the modern church in the West has largely done. I believe in many respects Andrew Tate is calling out the absurdities of this privatized faith. Now, I should note that I do think if he was looking for a bona fide Christian retraditionalization that's really taking on the modern world, well, that's precisely what we're seeing coming from orthodoxy today, particularly Russian Orthodoxy, that's once again reawakening a very anti-modern, anti-woke Christian public sphere. But the Western church, by and large, has yet to shuffle off this dying carcass of secular modernity. And until it does, I can assure you, those longing for a serious religious challenge to modernity will find it elsewhere. Andrew Tate is just the beginning. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You will definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on Paul Pelosi attack narrative, totally unraveling. You're going to absolutely love it. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.